So ladies and gentlemen, I give you a warm welcome once again on SLTV Lab. My name is Shadrach Habumurim. Today we are going to see the video about physiology of the respiratory system. Please stick on this video from the beginning up to the end. You are going to know more about the function of the respiratory system. This is physiology of the respiratory system. The respiratory system is made up of the nose, the mouth, the trachea, the lungs, and the diaphragm. So let's see these parts in details. We start with the frontal sinus. Within the frontal bone, it is just superior to the nasal cavity. Then we see the sphenoid sinus. It is posterior to the nasal cavity within the sphenoid bone. Then we see the nasal cavity. We see the nasal vestibule. Then we see the oral cavity. Then we see the pharynx, the epiglottis. We see the vocal folds. Then we see this thyroid cartilage. Then there is cricoid cartilage. Then we see the trachea. Let's see the lower part of the respiratory system. We'll start with the trachea again. We see on top of each lung, it is the apex of the lung. Then we see the superior lobe of the right lung. Down we see the horizontal fissure. It is the one that separates the superior lobe and the middle lobe. Then between the middle lobe and the inferior lobe, it is the oblique fissure. Then we see the middle lobe. Down we see the inferior lobe. And below the lungs we find the diaphragm. Let's go on the left lung. We start with the superior lobe. So guys, the left lung has two lobes, the superior and the inferior, while the right lung has three lobes, the superior lobe, middle lobe, and the lower lobe. So we see the lingular division bronchus. Then we see the cannula of trachea. That is where the trachea gives out two branches, which are two main bronchi, the left and the right one. Here we see the intermediate bronchus. There we see the main bronchi, the left and the right one. Here we see right oblique fissure. It is the one that separates the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. There we see the cardiac notch. The cardiac notch, it indicates where lies the heart within the chest. You see, the heart lies under or at the side of the left lung. Here we see the lingula of lung. Actually, this lingula, it is like the little tongue of the left lung. It is the projection of the superior lobe of the left lung. You see, it is called lingula of the lung. Below we see the inferior lobe of the left lung. Good. Here in our lungs, we see some of the parts that are in green color. Let's start with the right one. Here are the right superior lobe bronchi. Those are the bronchi in the superior lobe of the right lung. Then on the left, we see left superior lobe bronchi. They are the bronchi in the left superior lobe. Down there, the blue color, we see the right inferior lobe bronchi. They are the bronchi in the inferior lobe of the right lung. Then we see left inferior lobe bronchi. Actually, those are the bronchi within the left inferior lobe. Then this one in yellow color are right middle lobe bronchi. They are the bronchi in the middle lobe of the right lung. Then there is no middle lobe in the left lung. Good. Now let's take a small portion of the lung, just at the end of the lung, to see what is in there. It looks like this. It is surrounded by the connective tissue. Then we see the alveolar sacs. Before the alveolar sacs, we see the alveolar duct. That is the one that takes air into the alveolar sac. Then we see the mucus gland. That is the one that produces mucus. Then we see the mucosal lining within the duct. Here we see the pulmonary artery. It is in blue color, which is the opposite from the other circulatory system, because it carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs to get oxygen. Then the pulmonary vein, it is in red color because it carries oxygenated blood from the heart, from the lungs to the heart. Here we see the atrium, then the alveoli. The alveoli, that is the end way of air, where air will give oxygen to the blood and then get carbon dioxide and take it outside of the lungs. There we see the capillary beds. That is where the gas exchange takes place. During inspiration or inhalation, air comes into the lungs. We breathe in air from the outside environment. During this time, the chest expands and the diaphragm relaxes and moves down. We are going to see it in a moment. So this is inspiration in details. Actual inspiration or inhalation, it is an active process that occurs when the chest cavity enlarges because of the contraction of the muscles. The diaphragm is the most important muscle at this stage. At the start of inspiration, the diaphragm contracts and flattens. Then it presses down on the abdominal contents and lifting the rib cage. This will increase the vertical height of the thoracic cavity. At the same time, the external intercostals, those are the muscles between the ribs, they contract and lift the rib cage and pull the sternum forward, thus increasing the front to back and side to side dimension of the chest. So, therefore, air will move in lungs passively, no force, and it will be followed by relaxation of those muscles, which leads to exhalation or inspiration. So guys, this is exhalation. During exhalation, the ribs or the thoracic cage size decreases and the diaphragm moves upward. We are going to see it in a bit. And then air moves into the lungs from the outside environment. Let's see in details what happens during exhalation. Actually, in healthy people, exhalation or expiration is passive, and it relies only on elastic recoil of the lungs as the inspiratory muscles relaxes rather than on muscle contraction. Then air in the lungs will be squeezed and its pressure will be risen above atmospheric air. Thus, air is driven out of the lungs until the atmospheric pressure and pressure within the alveoli are equal. Remember that normally expiration is effortless or it is passive. But if the respiratory passageways are narrowed because of any diseases such as asthma or clogged with mucus or fluid, for example, in a chronic bronchitis disease, the expiration becomes an active process. Now, when it is necessary to empty the lungs more air than normal, the abdominal muscles contract and force the diaphragm upwards. Also, contraction of the internal intercostal muscles will occur actively and pulls the ribs downwards. And this will generate higher air pressure within the lungs and forces the air out more rapidly than normal. Remember, respiration is passive or involuntary. Like when you are sleeping, you keep breathing but without knowing what is going on. Therefore, there is something else that controls the respiration. Let's see it. Actually, the respiratory control center is situated in the medulla oblongata, which is part of the brain. This medulla oblongata sets the rhythm of breathing and contains neurons that are self-excitatory, like the ones in the heart. This maintains the normal respiratory rates, which is between 12 and 15 breaths per minute. Then let's see how the medulla oblongata controls the respiration. Actually, the inspiratory neurons in the medulla oblongata excite the muscles of inspiration through the phrenic nerve to the diaphragm, and the intercostal nerves to the intercostal muscles, causing them to shorten and enlarge the volume of the chest cavity. And when the medulla oblongata neurons stop firing, the muscles recoil, and the chest cavity returns to its resting size. So guys, there is a time when expiration becomes forced. So let's see what is forced expiration. Actually, forced expiration occurs like during exercise when we need to deliver more oxygen than normal to the tissues. Therefore, the brain center, the other one that controls the respiration, which is the medulla oblongata, send more impulses to the respiratory muscles, and we breathe more deeply and quickly with the help of the abdominal muscles and the internal intercostals. Now let's see what are the factors that affect respiration. Actually, when there is a rise in carbon dioxide and a resultant fall in pH, this will increase the rate and depth of breathing so that carbon dioxide is decreased and the levels return to the normal. The other factor is when there is a fall in blood oxygen levels. These send impulse to the medulla oblongata to increase the rate and depth of breathing as well, and this occurs only when oxygen levels are very low. Other factors are airways obstruction. This happens like in chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases like asthma. Then there is restriction for lung infection. This occurs in chronic restrictive pulmonary diseases, CRPDs. Guys, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And please rate the video, share it to your colleagues, and don't forget to press subscribe button if you have not yet subscribed. May God bless you. See you in another video next time. Thank you very much. Don't forget to press like, subscribe, and the bell.